Okie dokie. There we go. I think my audio levels are in a good place. How we doing? Woo! Welcome to another installment of me losing my mind. Oh no, I'm sorry. I meant Being in Time by Martin Heidegger. Ah, yes, the beautiful dissection of the analytics of being aware of your existence in the world and knowing what it means to be in a world. Ooh. Yeah. This stuff has been so great. It pops up in all sorts of conversations. It's real nice getting the exposure in. All right, I'm looking at this next section we got rolling up over here, and it looks like Daddy's going to have to skip over a whole lot of Greek. There's some Greeky stuff going on over here. So we'll see how all of that goes. How's it going, people in chat? Violence is Life has met us today. She always misses the live stream. She always makes comments, bummed out that she missed it. I'm so glad that you caught it. I had to futz around with my schedule a bit. I was going to do this last night, then I realized there was going to be some schedule mishap between that and a personal life appointment. So I moved it over to this afternoon because, let's do it in the afternoon when people can't make the excuse that they're sleeping, right? Everybody's got time for live streams, except for my live streams. It's all good. I suck at marketing. It's my own damn fault. And who wants to listen to a guy read a book on a live stream and make all sorts of mistakes? You know, it's whatever. I'm having fun. I'm glad to deliver this to you in whatever particular way. Anyway, we are at chapter 44, I guess. These are chapters, we can say. You know, this book is not quite laid out like in narrative fragments, right? You know, there's like a whole subject lecture, and then it goes for as long as it needs to. Dasein, disclosedness, and truth. From time immemorial, philosophy has associated truth and being. Parmenides was the first to discover the being of entities, and he identified being with the perspective understanding of being. And that must be the Greek term for it. Aristotle, in outlining the history of how this Greek term have been uncovered, emphasizes that the philosophers before him, under the guidance of the things themselves, have been compelled to inquire further. He is describing the same fact when he says that this Greek term, that he, Parmenides, was compelled to follow that which showed itself in itself. In another passage, he remarks that these thinkers carried on their research, compelled by the truth itself. Aristotle describes these researchers as this term, which I guess means philosophizing, or philosophizing about the truth. So it's philosophizing about the truth, right? And that whole statement is in quotations. But philosophizing is in quotations, and truth is in quotations within the grander quote, which I'm assuming is expressed in the Greek here, and we probably just don't have exactly the proper word for it, right? Because philosophizing and truth are words in question. Or even as these particular terms, as exhibiting something and letting it be seen with regard to the truth and within the range of the truth. Philosophy itself is defined as the science of truth, but it is also characterized as a science which contemplates entities as entities. That is, with regard to their being, right? So philosophy is effectively the science of the recognition of an identity, right? That, this piece of this piece of material in my hand is not merely a flat piece of material. It has features, it has inscriptions on it. It's made a very particular way and is all done on purpose with intention and thus has a meaning, right? And all of those things had to come together with meaning before any of it being applied to something could be identifiable as an entity, going from being known as an entity as being merely metal, a forged metal, to being very particularly a coin, specifically a dime, which used to have Eisenhower's head on it. God damn it, that's my timeline. Anyway, what is signified here by carrying on research into the truth by science of the truth? In such researches is truth made a theme as it would be in a theory of knowledge or of judgment? Manifestly, not for truth signifies the same as a thing, seish, something that shows itself. But what then does the expression truth signify if it can be used as a term for entity and being? Excuse me. If, however, truth rightfully has a primordial connection with being, then the phenomenon of truth comes within the range of the problematic of fundamental ontology. In that case, must not this phenomenon have been encountered already within our preparatory fundamental analysis, the analytic of Dasein? What ontico-ontological connection does truth have with Dasein and with the ontical characteristic of Dasein, which we call the understanding of being? Can the reason why being necessarily goes together with truth and vice versa be pointed out in terms of such understanding? These questions are not to be evaded because being does indeed go together with truth. The phenomenon of truth has already been one of the themes of our earlier analysis, though not explicitly under the title. In giving precision to the problem of being, it is now time to delimit the phenomenon of truth explicitly and to fix the problem which comprises in doing this. We should not just take together what we have previously taken apart. Our investigation requires a new approach. Our analysis takes its departure from the traditional conception of truth and attempts to lay bare the ontological foundation of that conception. In terms of these foundations, the primordial phenomenon of truth becomes visible. We can then exhibit the way in which the traditional conception of truth has been derived from the phenomenon. Our investigation will take it plain that to the question of the essence of truth there belongs necessarily the question of the kind of being which truth possesses. Together with this, we must clarify the ontological meaning of the kind of talk in which we say that there is truth, and we must also clarify the kind of necessity with which we must presuppose that there is truth. A. The traditional conception of truth and its ontological foundations. There are three theses which characterize the way in which the essence of truth has been traditionally taken and the way it is supposed to have been first defined. Is that supposed to be thesis with an I? But anyway, 1. That the locus of truth is assertion, judgment. 2. That the essence of truth lies in the agreement of the judgment with its object. 3. That Aristotle, the father of logic, not only has assigned truth to the judgment as its primordial locus, but has set going the definition of truth, as agreement. Now, there's an annotation here. These C's. The theses. Got it. Thank you, Violence. Here we follow the older edition in reading. Hat Sahul die Wahrheit dem Urteil als ihrem ursprünglichen Ort zuweisen als auch die Definition der Wahrheit als Übereinstimmung in Gang gebracht. The newer edition reads, hat Sahul zugewiesen hat auch. Which doesn't get me any closer to knowing exactly what's going on with his point about Aristotle as the father of logic, right? Because it's very interesting how we go with the particular concept of the locus, and then the particular concept of agreement. And then we go into particularly the lessons of Aristotle as a whole, right? Which kind of tells us something about the fact that we would just invoke Aristotle as such is to effectively say, to keep the entire principle of your conception of the Western mind in check when you consider that, right? Because, you've got the Greek Trinity, the tri-generational philosophical powerhouse that everybody operates from, which is Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and all three of them are extraordinarily interesting figures, because Socrates, of course, was practically a rabble who was operating on basic prime fundamentals of wisdom and deconstructional thinking, basically. And then Plato, Plato was just trying, Plato was really trying to, I think he was trying to rewrite the sophisticated way of thinking that was because I think that Socrates, with his controversies, Plato liked Socrates, but Plato did not have the agenda that the Socratic universe was about. He was building something his own that sprung out of the culture of conversation created by that philosophy, breaking us out of the assumptions of our patterns and our meanings to things, right? Applying the Socratic method is the only way you're going to sit there and be able to get to anything Cartesian, which then gets you to anything Heideggerian as the contrast to the Cartesian, in which a great deal of this is framed, because, of course, Heidegger is talking to his German audience under the Cartesian thought system as one of the most sophisticated for the time of Western civilization in his life. And I don't have enough education on the big three as of late to go deep into that, but I know that it's there. I want you to know that it's there, and perhaps it's your path to explore that branch. This isn't even a rabbit hole. These are just branches. We're up top. We're not even going down below. Not yet. Not unless this thing wants me to go down. Here, it is not our aim to provide a history of the concept of truth, which could be presented only on the basis of a history of ontology. We shall introduce our analytical discussion by alluding to some familiar matters. Aristotle says that the term here, that the soul's experiences, its term here, which is representations, are likening of things. This assertion, which is by no means proposed as an explicit definition of the essence of truth, has also given occasion for developing the later formulation of the essence of truth as adequatio intellectus et re. Thomas Aquinas, who refers this definition to Avicenna, who in turn has taken it over from Isaac Israeli's 10th century Book of Definitions, also uses for adequatio, or likening, the term correspondencia, or correspondence, and convencia, coming together. All right. There was an annotation. This is where adequatio intellectus et re. This is usually translated as adequation of the intellect and the thing. Heidegger makes the connection seem closer by translating both the Latin adequatio and the Greek by the word anglichon, which we have somewhat arbitrarily translated as likening. Anglichon, which sounds like Anglican, which is associated with the Anglo-Saxons, the angels, the English, getting into all the angs over there. The Neo-Kantian epistemology of the 19th century often characterizes this definition of truth as expression of a methodological, retarded, naive realism. I love retarded. Anyway, yes, Anglican. Correct. Retarded, naive realism, and declared it to be irreconcilable with any formulation of this question which has undergone Kant's Copernican revolution. But Kant, too, adhered to this conception of truth, so much so that he did not even bring it up for discussion. This has been overlooked, though Brentano has already called our attention to it. The old and celebrated question with which it was supposed that one might drive the logicians into a corner is this: what is truth? The explanation of the name of truth, namely that it is the agreement of knowledge with its object, will here be granted and presupposed. If truth consists in the agreement of knowledge with its object, then this object must thus be distinguished from others. For knowledge is false if it does not agree with the object to which it is related, even if it should contain something which might well be valid for other objects. And in the introduction to the Transcendental Dialectic, Kant states, truth and illusion are not in the object so far as it is intuited, but in the judgment about it so far as it thought. Of course, this characterization of truth as agreement, adequatio, is very general and empty, yet it will still have some justification if it can hold its own without prejudice to any of the most various interpretations which that distinctive predicate knowledge will support. We are now inquiring into the foundations of this relation. What else is tacitly posited in this relational totality of the adequatio intellectus et re, and what ontological character does that which is thus posited have itself? What in general does one have in view when one uses the term agreement? The agreement of something with something has the formal character of a relation of something to something. Every agreement, and therefore truth as well, is a relation, but not every relation is an agreement. A sign points at what is indicated. Okay? Okay, that's not much of an important word. All right. Indicated. Where'd indicated go? Ah. What is true? Wait, truth, expression, recognize, Copernican. Oh wait, I'm way down here, aren't I? What is? Oh my God, I'm sorry, I went way too far down. Okay, such indicating is a relation, but not an agreement of the sign with what is indicated. Yet manifestly, not every agreement is a conventia of the kind that is fixed upon in the definition of truth. The number 6 agrees with 16 minus 10. These numbers agree. They are equal with regard to the question of how much. Equality is one way of agreeing. Its structure is such that something like a with regard to belongs to it. In the adequatio, something gets related. What is that with regard to which it agrees? In clarifying the truth relation, we must notice also what is peculiar to the terms of this relation. With regard to what do intellectus and res agree in their kind of being and their essential content? Do they give us anything at all with regard to which they can agree? If it is impossible for intellectus and res to be equal because they are not of the same species, are they then perhaps similar? But knowledge is still supposed to give the thing just as it is. This agreement has the relational character of the just as. So why? Or we, something like that. In what way is this relation possible as a relation between intellectus and res? From these questions, it becomes plain that to clarify the structure of truth, it is not enough simply to presuppose this relational totality, but we must go back and inquire into the context of being, which provides the support for this totality as such. Must we, however, bring up here the epistemological problematic as regards the subject-object relation, or can our analysis restrict itself to interpreting the immanent consciousness of truth, and thus remain within the sphere of the subject? According to the general opinion, what is true is knowledge, but knowledge is judging. In judgment, one must distinguish between the judging as a real psychical process, that which is judged as an ideal content. It will be said of the latter that it is true. The real psychical process, however, is either present at hand or not. According to this opinion, the ideal content of judgment stands in a relationship of agreement. This relationship thus pertains to a connection between an ideal content of judgment and the real thing as that which is judged about. Is this agreement real or ideal in its kind of being? Or neither of these? How are we to take ontologically the relation between an ideal entity and something that is real and present at hand? Such a relation indeed subsists, or besthet. And in factical judgment, it subsists not only as a relation between the content of judgment and the real object, but likewise as a relation between the ideal content and the real act of judgment. And does it manifestly subsist more inwardly in this latter case? Let's see what's going on here. Oh, we got a new guy. Walk Outdoors Disc Jockey Day. Let's see here. What do you got? Per your earlier double entendre geste about diving more deeply if this thing is wanting you to, quote, go down, unquote. Ha! Here's a vote from a female viewer to go down intellectually as deeply as possible. Well, thank you, Walk Outdoors. No. What I mean by down is like, right, excuse me. Just because, look, this is just the mind warping thinking. Hey, Susie Q, of Martin Heidegger's Being in Time, right? It's out there, right? And kind of feels like almost an up there, right? Like where it kind of, like, there's very little in here that gets into the more Jungian style of work, talking about the unconscious, talking about the shadow, right? So, like, this book in particular doesn't go into the depths. If I feel compelled to invoke that to make a point, be assured I will. Your ponderings on all levels intriguing, valued for your distinctive perspective, even if, as you mentioned, potentially less mainstream academia-wise. Yeah, I know. I operate. It's punk rock. It's a hot mess. It's me doing my thing. Look. Let me be on the level before I finish reading these passages here, right? And not that I've never fucking said things like this before. It's like, I grew up. I was born in 1980. Okay, I'm all for computers and the internet, but I don't want to be spending that much time around them. I wanted to be more invested in tech that way when I had more money, and I thought I would have made different life choices by now, right? Big time fool about a whole fuck ton of things. But if I wasn't that foolish, I wouldn't spend all my time doing this, which then has its reciprocal reward of being very, very helpful to that handful of people that eventually it comes across. And, who's going to share my shit? It's just like, who's going to watch my shit? It's just like, oh, I'll watch Steve. I can't watch Steve here. He always strains with his shirt off. I'm at work, damn it. I can't run over and someone sees Steve like that. This is like I don't even care that it, I don't even think he looks good. But he's happy and comfortable, and I like what he does, and I'm mostly just listening. Like, that's kind of my target audience, I think, right? Yeah. So, but hey, it would be hysterical and fun and awesome if I still became hugely successful doing things this way. But hey, I don't expect anybody to just be interested in me. I gotta fucking put all this work into it. I can't just come out here and just be interesting to listen to and demonstrate my intelligence and perhaps put on a healthy quality lesson for you, because you're probably too distracted or cringed out by something, or it's the music, or it's whatever, and that's fine. I have a day job, and I get to be myself all the time, and that's all I fucking need. Yes, Violence, Mars and Leo. That's me. I don't know if that's you, but that's me. All right. Well, young, especially, honoring your double entendre, truly dig your humor. Thank you. Totally agree. Research your way for Apple's being the dark horse. Steve's job when he is. Thank you so much, Walk Outdoors. All right, let's get back to the high dagger. I'm just going to start from the top of this passage here. Must we, however, bring up here the epistemological problematic as regards to the subject-object relation? Or can our analysis restrict itself to interpreting the immanent consciousness of truth and thus remain within the sphere of the subject? According to the general opinion, what is true is knowledge, but knowledge is judging. In judgment, one must distinguish between the judging as a real psychical process and that which is judged as an ideal content. Or ideal content? It's either content or content. See, interesting the way the way such a slight inflection in the consonant completely tweaks the meaning, right? Lots of charts I've had. Tried to get Styx to confirm his time of birth, but I figured it's afternoon. Styx is an occultist. He's got lots of enemies, and he knows that people ought to know better than to put out their birth chart information, right? I'm a fool. My birth chart information I have, shown plays. I'm pretty sure I've plastered it up on videos somewhere, like showing a blammo, here's my chart. Let's talk about how the astrology works, using myself as an example. People have said that's foolish. Maybe that's why I'm in the situation that I'm in. Maybe I'm astrologically cursed by one of my enemies. I don't know. I'm having an okay time. A good time, really, in an okay situation. Eventually, I will transcend this world, one way or the other. And that which is judged, ideal, and kind. Okay, it will be said of the latter that it is true. The real psychical process, however, is either present at hand or not. According to this opinion, the ideal content of judgment stands in a relationship of agreement. This relationship thus pertains to a connection between an ideal content of judgment and the real thing as that which is judged about. Is this agreement real or ideal in its kind of being, or neither of these? Oh, by the way, I'll be straight up about this. Two major reasons why it was an easy decision for me to rage quit the weaving spiders, was A, nobody wants to be around them from the old crew anymore. And I don't care if that wasn't supposed to get slipped out. I won't say any names, but there's a fucking reason why there's this level of disconnect. All right, and thus it became a lame place. Week after week would go by. Well, we're all having fun. We all like each other and everything else, but I fucking hated the format. I was just like, man, this really is just like, I can play ball, but it's getting harder to play ball because I'm having less and less fun, right? The shirt had to always be on, and all the other people that brought in the really cool atmosphere that made it all work didn't want to be there anymore. And so, in many respects, I felt like I was holding on to something that had died. And I let it act accordingly. So I could give myself permission to just get the fuck out of a bad situation. No, there wasn't a dress code, other than that there was to be in dress, right? It's just like, they don't care what shirt I wear. They just don't want to see my pectoral muscles, right? They don't want to see it. They don't want to see that shit. They're not interested. They don't want to see the torso at all. And it's kind of ridiculous because it's like, who are we looking good for doing this? You're really trying to turn it into a certain kind of operation just like that, and it's really not at the same time because of how it functions with the flow state and all that. It's whatever. It can be whatever it wants to be. I haven't fucking watched a second of it since I walked away. All I know is that it wasn't fun anymore. It wasn't fun. It wasn't serving a higher purpose, I felt. Profound conversation, but I felt like it wasn't serving a higher purpose. It was too easy for things to go into their derailed manner of speaking. And, hey, look, it is what it is. How are we to take ontologically the relation between an ideal entity and something that is real and present at hand? Such a relation indeed subsists, or bestet, and in factical judgments, it subsists not only as a relation between the content of judgment and the real object, but likewise as a relation between the ideal content and the real act of judgment, and does it manifestly subsist more inwardly in this latter case? All right, give me 1 second to highlight this, and how soon till we hit 45? All right, this seems to be a pretty long chap. Oh yeah, okay, yep. All right, we're gonna take our next break right here. So you guys continue to enjoy some Bodum.
File 100% free with TurboTax.
Of course, there'd be an ad. I freaking scanned this so an ad wouldn't show up. I can't even skip the ad. Ah, you bastard. All this because I'm too lazy to go grab the MP3 and just play it, and I'm pretty sure I have this album on my hard drive. Whatever. That's the price I pay.
What you all know about that?
All right. There we go. Getting carried away. All right, I was gonna type it, but you know what? No, I'm just gonna say it because I'm feeling all right about it. Okay, so Walkout says, personally hoping you start watching the weaving spiders again anyway, even if only to proffer your perspective in the chat, propose it. Well, whatever you mean, I get it, because I valid especially your and Balderson's Norse pagan sinks, right? Well, Baldy's the one that said it, but at the end of the day, it's all three of the core guys. It's Baldy, and Alan and Jim, right? Because they're the ones that are the only ones making any actual decisions about the weave, regardless of how tight anybody else was going to be. It's really Alan, Jim, and Baldy. They're the only ones that don't freaking have a problem with anything about themselves. They never have issue about themselves amongst themselves. They're the only core solid thing. As far as I'm concerned, trust has been destroyed. Completely and utterly destroyed. You don't lay such a shameful retort on me because I'm saying something you find embarrassing. You don't fucking do that. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate that, though. All right. Where was I? I was scrolling all the way down looking for the spot. I did highlight, right? I think I said I highlighted it, right? Oh, thank God I highlighted it. I would have been scrolling over there. Oh, where was I? Or is the ontological meaning of the relation between real and ideal something about which we must not inquire? Yet the relation is to be one which subsists. What does such subsisting best on mean ontologically? This is interesting. The ontological meaning of the relation between real and ideal. Right? That's, and he's saying, is there something about that relationship that we don't inquire? What is he really talking about? He's talking about questioning your faith. Your faith is your ideal. Right? I worked very hard, and in a way that's very fearful for a Christian soul, to ask myself about all the, look, I'm pretty sure I'm going to live long enough to say, Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, forgive me, I'm going to be a Christian again. But I have to entertain nothing except what I can fucking actually experience, and then see if I can fucking find you from there. Or find what is real. Because you're such an ideal. Oh, Jehovah and Jesus and all you special Jews from Israel out there, and all that fucking world. That Dasein, that a Catholic that goes born again Christian goes through. Huh. So anyway, and my ability to do that as a child is part of the reason why I've got this thing going on with me. In my astrology, I'm almost certain this comes from the placement of my ascendant, in particular, and I think that its correspondence to my moon probably has a fuck ton to do with it. But anyway. Why should this not be a legitimate question? Is it accidental that no headway has been made with this problem in over 2,000 years? Has the question already been perverted in the very way it has been approached in the ontological, unclarified separation of the real and the ideal? The real versus the ideal. For many people, it is the ideal world that there are several genders, right? That, that conversation has become the low-hanging fruit of examples of flawed psychology for the last several years. It's almost nauseating to bring it up, but we bring it up because we're trying to have something relatable to everyone's experience, or at least everyone's experience of the media. Well, the good thing about Catholics' violence is that their entire lifestyle is paganly dressed, so it's very hard for them to discern the difference between unchristian stuff, right? With the exception of like the devil, right? Because they've agreed to play this game where the devil is this real threat to them, so on and so forth. When these things only have as much power as what you unconsciously give them. But anyway, and they quickly lose most of it the second you're just conscious of them and your interest in not giving them any power and taking your personal power back. Okay, and with regard to the actual judging of what is judged is the separation of the real act of judgment from the ideal content altogether unjustified. Does not the actuality of knowing and judging get broken asunder into two ways of being, two levels which can never be pieced together in such a manner as to reach the kind of being that belongs to knowing? Yeah, what's he talking about? These two levels. This is about existing with cognitive dissonance. He's literally talking about the schism of the mind in cognitive dissonance without saying cognitive dissonance. Is not psychologism correct in holding out against this separation, even if it neither clarifies ontologically the kind of being which belongs to the thinking of that which is thought, nor is even so much as acquainted with it as a problem? Yeah. He's talking about cognitive dissonance. He's talking about when you are completely blindly auto-gaslit, right? We're talking about people that can be gaslit by any fucking thing. If we go back to the distinction between the act of judgment and its content, we shall not advance our discussion of the question of the kind of being which belongs to the adequatio. We shall only make plain the indispensability of clarifying the kind of being which belongs to knowledge itself. In the analysis which this necessitates, we must at the same time try to bring into view a phenomenon which is characteristic of knowledge, the phenomenon of truth. When does truth become phenomenally explicit in knowledge itself? It does so when such knowing demonstrates itself as true. By demonstrating itself, it is assured of its truth. Thus, in the phenomenal context of demonstration, the relationship of agreement must become visible. Let us suppose that someone with his back turned to the wall makes the true assertion that the picture on the wall is hanging askew. This assertion demonstrates itself when the man who makes it turns around and perceives the picture hanging askew on the wall. What gets demonstrated in this demonstration? What is the meaning of confirming, or bahrung, or bihwarung, such an assertion? Do we, let us say, ascertain some agreement between our knowledge of what is known and the thing on the wall? Yes and no depending upon whether our interpretation of the expression, what is known, is phenomenally appropriate. If he who makes the assertion judges without perceiving the picture, but merely represents it to himself, to what is he related? To representations shall we say? Certainly not. If representation is here supposed to signify representing as a physical process, nor is he related to the representations in the sense of what is thus represented. If what we have in mind here is a real picture of that real thing which is on the wall. Hold on, we have an annotation. Ist auch nicht auf Vorstellungen besorgen im Sinne des Vorgestellten, sofern damit gemeint wird ein Bild von dem Willen Ding an der Wand. While we follow the tradition in translating Vorstellung as representation, the literal meaning is somewhat closer to putting before us. In this sense, our picture or image, Bild, of the actual picture, Bild, on the wall, is itself something which we have put before us, and which is thus vorgestellt, though in English we would hardly call it that which we represent. All right. Shall we say, wait, that was it, right? Where's one? It was down here, right? We were right here, weren't we? Shoot. Right, we're down here somewhere. Questions to signify, because there's two. Shoot. Being towards the thing itself. I am sorry, maybe it was up here and I skipped over it. Is that what happened? I've done it again and lost my place. Let's see. He who makes the assertion judges without perceiving the picture to represent shows uncertainty. There it is. Okay. Found it. The asserting, which merely represents... The asserting, which merely represents, is related, rather, in that sense which is most its own, to the real picture on the wall. What one has in mind is the real picture, and nothing else. Any interpretation in which something else is here, slipped in as what one supposedly has in mind in an assertion that merely represents, belies the phenomenal fact of the case as to that about which the assertion gets made. Asserting is a way of being towards the thing itself that is. Okay, don't need to worry about that. And what does one's perceiving of it demonstrate? Nothing else than that is. Thing is the very entity which one has in mind in one's assertion. What comes up for confirmation is that this entity is pointed out by the being in which the assertion is made, which is being towards what is put forward in the assertion. Thus, what is to be confirmed is that such being uncovers. The entity towards which it is. What gets demonstrated is being uncovering of the assertion. Okay, let me highlight, thank you. All right, we're reading this one. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. I have endless gratitude for my creator. Yeah, okay, that's okay. Okay, oh, you haven't said too much here. Worship was worship, right? Okay, yeah, cool. All right, good. Thanks for being here, everybody. I've said hello to everybody, yes? Yes. Okay. Ausgewiesen wird das Entdecken sein der Assange. Here, and in the following pages, we find the expression Entdecken sein, consistently printed with a hyphen in the more recent editions. In the older editions, it is written sometimes as one word, sometimes as two, and it is hyphenated only at the ends of lines. In both editions, we sometimes find this word printed with a lowercase initial. We have marked such cases with an asterisk, for while we prefer the translation being uncovered in such cases, the lowercase initia suggests that to be uncovering may be a better reading. In carrying out such a demonstration, the knowing remains related solely to the entity itself. in this entity, the confirmation, as it were, gets enacted. The entity itself, which one has in mind, shows itself just as it is in itself. That is to say, it shows that it is in its self-sameness, is just as it gets pointed out in the assertion as being just as it gets uncovered, as being representations, do not get compared, either among themselves or in relation to the real thing. What is to be demonstrated is not an agreement of knowing with its object, still less of the physical with the still less of the psychical with the physical, but neither is it an agreement between contents of consciousness among themselves. What agreement between contents of consciousness among themselves? What is to demonstrated is solely the being uncovered, the Entdecktsein of the entity itself. That entity is the how of its uncoveredness. This uncoveredness is confirmed when that which is put forward in the assertion, namely the entity itself, shows itself as that very same thing. Confirmation signifies the entity showing itself in its self-sameness. The confirmation is accomplished on the basis of the entity showing itself. This is possible only in such a way that the knowing which asserts and which gets confirmed is, in its ontological meaning, itself a being towards real entities and a being that uncovers. What's going on over here? 2 tabs to keep one spot and share the other to scroll. I don't know, maybe that's a solution. Okay. Haven't seen mainstream situational comedies with pagan mid-gen, religious older gen. Oh, okay. All right, you're having just a little bit of a side chat. All right, never mind. Carry on. To say that an assertion is true signifies that it uncovers the entity as it is in itself. Such an assertion points out, lets the entity be seen in its uncoveredness. The being true or truth of the assertion must be understood as being uncovering. Thus, truth has by no means the structure of an agreement between knowing and the object in the sense of a likening of one entity, the subject, to another, the object. Being true as being uncovering is in turn ontologically possible only on the basis of being in the world. This latter phenomenon, which we have known as a basic state of Dasein, is the foundation for the primordial phenomenon of truth. We shall now follow this up more penetratingly. B. The primordial phenomenon of truth and the derivative character of the traditional conception of truth. Being true, truth means being uncovering. But is not this a highly arbitrary way to define truth? By such drastic ways of defining this concept, we may succeed in eliminating the idea of agreement from the conception of truth. Must we not pay for this dubious gain by plunging the good old tradition into nullity? But while our definition is seemingly arbitrary, it contains only the necessary interpretation of what was primordially surmised in the oldest tradition of ancient philosophy and even understood in a phenomenological manner. That's logos, I remember logos. If a logos as that is to be true, its being true is this term in the manner of that term, of taking entities out of their hiddenness and letting them be seen in their unhiddenness, their uncoveredness. So this term, which Aristotle equates with that term, I see the pi letter. That must be maybe that's P. The word starts with P, I suppose. And this one, in the passages cited above, signifies the things themselves. It signifies what shows itself, entities in the how of their uncoveredness. And is it accidental that in one of the fragments of Heraclitus, the oldest fragments of philosophical doctrine in which the logos is explicitly handled, the phenomenon of truth hold on a second. In the sense of uncoveredness or unhiddenness, as we have set it forth, shows through. Those who are lacking in understanding are contrasted with the Logos and also with him who speaks that Logos and understands it. The Logos is this term. It tells how entities comport themselves. But to those who are lacking in understanding, what they do remains hidden. This term. They forget it. That term. I know, it's annoying being like, this term and that term. I got no choice. I've got all sorts of stuff going on in my life. Learning Greek is not on the list right now. At all. I ain't gonna lie. It tells how entities comport themselves. But to those who are lacking in understanding, what they do remains hidden in this term. They forget it under that term. That is, for them, it sinks back into hiddenness. Thus, to the Logos belongs unhiddenness. To translate this word as truth, and above all to define this expression conceptually in theoretical ways, is to cover up the meaning of what the Greeks made self-evidently basic for the terminological use of this term as a pre-philosophical way of understanding it. In citing such evidence, we must avoid uninhibited word mysticism. Nevertheless, the ultimate business of philosophy is to preserve the force of the most elemental words, in which Dasein expresses itself, and to keep the common understanding from leveling them off to that unintelligibility which functions in turn as a source of pseudo-problems. Interesting. Talking about this manner in which things, in which basically the issue goes askew, and then you're complaining about a problem which is kind of derivative of the real problem. STJ. I do watch STJ. Who's STJ? I think I know who that is. Who's STJ? I think I follow or are familiar with that. I can't think of him right now. All right, unhiddenness. Where was I? Philosophical understanding it. Pseudo problems. Here we are. We have now given a phenomenal demonstration of what we set forth earlier as to logos and this term. In, so to speak, a dogmatic interpretation. In proposing our definition of truth, we have not shaken off the tradition, but we have appropriated it primordially, and we shall have done so all the more if we succeed in demonstrating the idea of agreement is one to which theory had to come on the basis of the primordial phenomenon of truth, and if we can show how this came about. Now, by the way, a lot of this, especially talking about the real versus the ideal. Survive the Jive. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Tom Rousell. He's great. Yeah, so the whole thing, like a couple chapters back when the world, the Dasein of the existential Dasein, and then your Dasein, like almost like bending to it, right? There's a manner in which we behave, which is appropriate to how we handle our existence in the world, including the things that we believe in that we cannot see. We have a certain demeanor in this world because of my imagination of what life is like outside of these walls, my imagination of what life is like outside of my neighborhood, outside of my region, etc., etc. These are different levels of existentiality with different levels of reality verifiability at any given time, right? And my ideals could be shattered, right? And then I am forced to acknowledge that the world is something that I thought it is not. And I have to readjust my relationship with it. And I have to do that at least enough to get by until I can come to a higher understanding of things and get my bearings straight, because I have to recollect my world. right? I have these fragmented pieces of how I thought everything worked, and the pieces are still real. They just don't have the relationships anymore, and a lot of pieces don't exist anymore because now I realize they're illusions. So now I've got to work with all of this stuff, and some of this stuff may not really be as related to each other as I thought it was, right? It's like trying to equate the structural engineering of like Paris to the structural engineering of South America in the ancient world, right? You're talking about something that was done in the last 1,000 years versus something that was done like 2,000 to 3,000 years ago or something like that, with like completely different persons and architects and different level of philosophical understanding in that civilization, so on and so forth, right? There's no philosophy, like you don't really hear much about, like there's no like ancient philosophers of South American like stuff that anybody hears about, right? Like it probably exists, and it's like lurking in the depths of some like translated to Spanish text somewhere, that kind of situation. Anyway, what time is it? It's 4:11. Let's keep going. I hopefully will be done with this by 5 or so. Z, I have a book of Egyptian tarot written by a Frenchman called Pitois? Pita? Sounds like Pata. Pitoy? Either way, like it's Egyptian. The guy's name is Patoy, which kind of sounds like Pata. He's probably changed his name. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's a lie or something. I just find it interesting. It has an alphabet he came up with based on Demotic and Hebrew. What's Demotic? Sounds like demonic. Not that I wouldn't look at it because I'm not a Christian worried about demons, but anyway, let's see. And also these are definitions of merges. Being true as being covering in a way of being for Dasein. What makes this very uncovering possible must necessarily be called true in a still more primordial sense. The most primordial phenomenon of truth is first shown by the existential ontological foundation of uncovering. Uncovering is a way of being for being in the world, circumspective concern, or even the concern in which we tarry and look at something, uncovers entities within the world. These entities become that which has been uncovered. They are true in a second sense. What is primarily true, that is uncovering, is Dasein. Truth in the second sense does not mean being uncovering or uncovering, but being uncovered, uncoveredness, right? So, it's just like the process of, it's like revealing versus revealed, right? It's pretty darn simple. He's just getting into this various levels of, it's getting into the weeds because of the particular words in German that are then being translated to English and making sure that's the appropriate choice of words, which is why we have the asterisk, which the annotation described earlier. Yeah, they're definitely finding pyramids down there, right? There's so many questions about some of the backdrop of South America, like, and how much of it was once another way, right? It's a fascinating conversation. But anyway, our earlier analysis of the worldhood of the world and of entities within the world has shown, however, that the uncoveredness of entities within the world is grounded in the world's disclosedness. But disclosedness is that basic character of Dasein according to which it's there. Disclosedness is constituted by state of mind, understanding, and discourse, and pertains equiprimordially to the world, to being in and to the self. In its very structure, care is ahead of itself. being already in a world as being alongside entities within the world, and in the structure, the disclosedness of Dasein lies hidden. With and through it is uncoveredness. So we got another annotation here. Mit und der sei eist Endlichkeit. Our version reflects the ambiguity of the German, which leaves the grammatical function of the pronoun sei obscure and permits it to refer either to the disclosedness of Dasein, to care, or perhaps most likely to the structure of care. Right, care was discussed as this thing of interest of Dasein. I think that's the way it was phrased. This thing of interest to Dasein, this thing of care. And then I discussed how we saw the world change through the way care in the world was put out there, and the existence of dark care, right? And this was part of an example of times where the infernal feminine rears its head, right? Man has his infernal masculine, and women also have their infernal feminine, right? This is the terrible mother, and the cruel father. That's all this stuff, right? Hence, only with Dasein's disclosedness is the most primordial phenomenon of truth attained. What we have pointed out earlier with regard to the existential constitution of the there, and in relation to the everyday being of the there. Hello. Yep. Okay. I'm on a live stream, and the camera is on. Just letting you know. Alrighty. Okay. Everybody, the old man's passing through. Say hi to Dad. Hi. Oh, sorry about that. So where was I? Insofar as Dasein is its disclosedness, essentially, and discloses and uncovers, and something disclosed to this extent, it is essentially true. Dasein is in the truth. This assertion has meaning ontologically. It does not purport to say that ontically Dasein is introduced to all the truth, either always or just in every case, but rather that the disclosedness of its own most being belongs to its existential constitution. If we accept the result we have obtained earlier, the full existential meaning of the principle that Dasein is in the truth can be restored by the following considerations. 1. To Dasein's state of being, disclosedness in general essentially belongs. It embraces the whole of that structure of being which has become explicit through the phenomenon of care. To care belongs not only being in the world, but also being alongside entities within the world. The uncoveredness of such entities is equiprimordial with the being of Dasein and its disclosedness. To Dasein's state of being belongs thrownness. Indeed, it is. Constitutive for Dasein's disclosedness in thrownness is revealed that in each case Dasein as my Dasein and this Dasein is already in a definite world and alongside a definite range of definite entities within the world. Disclosedness is essentially factical. 3. To Dasein's state of being belongs projection, disclosive being towards its potentiality for being as something that understands. Dasein can understand itself in terms of the world and others, or in terms of its own most potentiality for being. What we got here for annotation number 2. Hold on a sec. Come on. Get a highlight so I don't lose my place. Where was annotation 1? I must have missed it. All right, I'm going to read 1 and 2 because I know I haven't read this page. Well, 1 is just in German, but 2 we can read. Der Entwerf das Eschlesein sein zu seinem Sein können Dasein kann sich als Verstanden aus der Welt und den anderen her verstehen oder aus seinem eigensten sein können. The earlier editions have a full stop after Entwurf rather than a colon, and introduce das with a capital. The grammatical function of as verstehens seems ambiguous. Okay, good to know. Let's see. Indeed, Manly P. Hall said there are stories similar to that of Thoth. Okay, interesting. Okay, yeah. If you remember where Manly P. Hall said that, I'd like to listen to that lecture. Oh, I am lagging. Demotic is the alphabet used by ancient Egyptian priests based on hieroglyphs. Oh, okay. I thought hieroglyphics was just what you called it. That's how out of study on Egypt I am at the moment. But anyway, okay. Back up. This possibility just mentioned means that Dasein discloses itself to itself in and as its own most potentiality for being. This authentic discloseness shows the phenomenon of the most primordial truth in the mode of authenticity. The most primordial and indeed the most authentic discloseness in which Dasein as a potentiality for being can be is the truth of existence. This becomes existentially ontologically definite only in connection with the analysis of Dasein's authenticity. Then we're going to hit 4. I just want to check something here. Okay. All right, how long? Are we still just... Geez. We're still going. This is all 44. Wow. Look how long this shit goes. Dear God. I didn't realize this chapter was going to be this big of a mouthful. Wow. Okay, that goes straight up to the end of Division 1. Jeez. Okay, so, what time is it? It's 4:20. All right. I want to take a break. Okay, so after I read passage 4 over here, which brings us to the bottom of the page. Let me see. I know I have to go back. Yeah, here we are. Good. Yeah, like 4, like right up to here, basically. Like, once I get through this big chunky paragraph, we'll take a little break. Taste aversion to Heidegger's throne, prefer groan, because that aligns with real reality more accurately in experience observationally. Interesting. Cool. Thank you. To Dasein's state of being belongs falling. Proximally and for the most part, Dasein is lost in its world. Its understanding as a projection upon possibilities of being has diverted itself thither. Its absorption in the they signifies that it is dominated by the way things are publicly interpreted. That which has been uncovered and disclosed stands in a mode in which it has been disguised and closed off by idle talk, curiosity, and ambiguity. Being towards entities has not been extinguished, but it has been uprooted. Entities have not been completely hidden. They are precisely the sort of thing that has been uncovered, but at the same time, they have been disguised. They show themselves, but in the mode of semblance. Likewise, what has been formerly been uncovered sinks back again, hidden and disguised. Because Dasein is essentially falling, its state of being is such that it is in untruth. This term, like the expression falling, is here used ontologically. If we are to use it in existential analysis, we must avoid giving it any ontically negative evaluation. To be closed off and covered up belongs to Dasein's facticity. In its full existential ontological meaning, the proposition that Dasein is in the truth states equiprimordially that Dasein is in untruth, but only insofar as Dasein has been disclosed. Has it also been closed off, and only insofar as entities within the world have been uncovered, along with Dasein, have such entities as possibly encounterable within the world been covered up, hidden, or disguised. Woo! Okay. Gonna put a highlight right there so we don't lose our precious little spot. And we're gonna hit that bad boy. oh, good. I'm catching an ad, so I can just let that run, so it gets skipped right away. One more. All right, good. All right, now we're queued up for the next break, if there is a next break. There probably will be. All right, here we go. It is therefore essential that Dasein should explicitly appropriate what has already been uncovered, defend it against semblance and disguise, and assure itself of its uncoveredness again and again. So, yeah, this is Dasein. I would say this would be Dasein serving its purpose as providing what you know, bringing you the knowing, bringing you the gnosis of the matter. Let's see here. The uncovering of anything new is never done on the basis of having something completely hidden, but takes its departure rather from uncoveredness in the mode of semblance. Entities look as if, that is, they have, in a certain way, been uncovered already, and yet they are still disguised. Truth, or uncoveredness, is something that must always first be wrested from entities. That's wrested with a silent or soft W in front, like wrestle, wrested. From entities. Entities get snatched out of their hiddenness. The factical uncoveredness of anything is always, as it were, a kind of robbery. So this kind of thing in particular he's talking about, this would be, whether he's going to say anything about it or not, this is about doing your work. This is about doing your shadow work, right? Your shadow work is going to be a proactive way in which you have the best possible relationship with your Dasein, right? By going and having everything get disclosed to you. You are your source of your own disclosure through Dasein. So this kind of robbery, is it accidental that when the Greeks express themselves as to the essence of truth, they use a primitive expression, which is this one here that I don't know? When Dasein so expresses itself, does not a primordial understanding of its own being thus make itself known? The understanding, even if it is only pre-ontological, that being in truth makes up an essential characteristic of being in the world. The goddess of truth, who guides Parmenides, puts two pathways before him, one of uncovering, one of hiding, but this signifies nothing else than that Dasein is already both in the truth and in untruth. The way of uncovering is achieved only in this term, in distinguishing between these understandingly, and making one's decision for the one rather than the other. The existential, ontological condition for the fact that being in the world is characterized by truth and untruth lies in the state of Dasein's being, which we have designated as throne projection. This is something that is constituted for the structure of care. So, okay, so here we are. You were talking about groan, the word groan versus the word throne, walk outdoors, right? And here we're seeing it, right? Taste aversion to Heidegger's throne. Prefer groan because that aligns with reality more accurately and experience observationally. Okay. I think the thing is that maybe I'm just thinking about how Heidegger, this entire book, has been putting together his point, right? I think for those of us that have a healthy relationship already with our Dasein, whether we knew it in these technicalities or not, but just kind of comes with the nature of the kind of people that we are, our disposition, our relationship to the world as a whole. It's going to emerge as growing. Why? Because we notice it. Thrown is, I think, is an appropriate word. If you're among the unconscious and then something from the existential Dasein smacks you in the face, right? You know, in my world, the extraterrestrial phenomenon is almost entirely a paranormal phenomenon that has nothing to do with the exopolitics of weird-looking people from a different place in outer space, right? You know, and that's wildly different than whatever is being proposed by the Pentagon about what these things are, because the Pentagon is basically trying to tell you that demons and angels exist or something, right? And it's just like, okay, yeah, so what? So what? Right? You see, but the thing is, there are Christians that are just living in their world. In their world, angels and demons exist invisibly. And, you know, it's like you get the spooky story, you get the miracle, and, like, you know, that's it. You see them dipping in and out like that. Now we got all this weird stuff, right? Now we got all this weird stuff. And public interest is meeting military interest for the first time. Like these are worlds that are colliding, right? There's cognitive dissonances that are being challenged, right? There are standards for what real is versus ideal, for truth. All these things are being thrown into question, right? This conversation in Congress is a Dasein changer. This is a game changer. It's a world changer, right? Because either the world's going to change because we accept the new lie, or the world's going to change because these statements will be pursued until they are revealed, until it is uncovered what it means by the statements that they said about what allegedly is real. And we will see eventually, because eventually we're going to have an example of it and a relationship with it. Is the relationship going to be impressive enough for me to say this is exactly what I thought it was? Is my mind going in the most important direction I need for the rest of my life, knowing that this is a thing, and this is a thing that might actually affect what I have to go and do tomorrow on a regular basis? Because now there's all sorts of really strange people on the road that have all sorts of extra eyes and elbows and protrusions on their faces, and you know, it's like all of a sudden you're in Star Trek world, right? Is that going to be what's going to happen, right? So the upshot of our existential ontological interpretation of the phenomenon of truth is, one, that truth is the most primordial sense, is Dasein's disclosedness, to which the uncoveredness of entities within the world belongs, and that Dasein is equiprimordially both in the truth and in untruth. Within the horizon of the traditional interpretation of phenomenon of truth, our insight into these principles will not be complete until it can be shown. One, that truth understood as agreement originates from the disclosedness by way of definite modification. Two, that the kind of being which belongs to disclosedness itself is such that its derivative modification first comes into view and leads the way for the theoretical explication of the structure of truth. Assertion and its structure, namely the apophontical as, are founded upon interpretation and its structure, the hermeneutical as, and also upon understanding, upon Dasein's discloseness. Truth, however, is regarded as a distinctive character of assertion as so derived. Thus, the roots of the truth of assertion reach back to the discloseness of understanding. But over and above these indications of how the truth of assertion has originated, the phenomenon of agreement must not be exhibited explicitly in its derivative character. Our being alongside entities within the world is concern, and this is being which uncovers. To Dasein's discloseness, however, discourse belongs essentially. Dasein expresses itself, spricht sich aus, it expresses itself as a being towards entities, a being towards which uncovers. And in assertion, it expresses itself as such about entities which have been uncovered, right? So it's effectively talking about this curiosity of Dasein. It's like this inherent, well, now I'm aware of it, I got to know all about it. Right? It's that situation. Or, there's a mystery here. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what I'm looking at. Right? And then you become aware of it. And then you want to know all about it. These kinds of things happen. Walk says, my beef with his use of throne versus grown is throne implied staticness, non-connectedness. It's an intentionality, kinetic potential compared to the fractal connectedness of grown. Okay, right, but you see, yeah, so we're talking about right. Well, throne, yeah. See, I see what you mean. And yeah, that's a lot to think about, but throne does have an appropriate place. Sometimes throne does work just because, that's the idea of, you threw something at me, right? It's like if I go to work and my expectation for the day is to do one particular thing, and I'm all set up for that, to the point where it'd be inconvenient to do a different task. And then I show up, and a whole bunch of stuff happened that was out of everybody's control because somebody made a slip-up in the schedule, and now we got to do this whole thing instead. And I have to stop, and I have to say, you threw that at me. I can't just do it, right? Now, it grew in its environment, but in my Dasein, it was thrown at me, right? I walked into it even, right? Which is like throwing myself upon the existential Dasein, right? Thinking I was prepared for the Dasein to receive me one way, but now it's received another way. Now I'm not lifting a tree, now I'm painting a wall, right? Yeah. Hey, look. I get it. And there are times where that's going to be appropriate. And it's going to be appropriate a lot. Because you're definitely right. I think throne, he may, he's using one word about it. And perhaps the expression of growth will come from something else. Because certainly a factor in your world changing is how you change, right? I'm 43 years old. Whether I like it or not, telomeres are going to start breaking down, and new cell growth ain't going to be the hot shit it was 40 years ago. That's going to be a big difference. I have grown into this from who I was 3 years ago. So, my Dasein changed by the merit that my relationship to everything inside my body and outside of my body changed. New wardrobe because clothes don't fit me. new way of new ways that I move around because I can fit into tighter spaces, and I'm more flexible. So there's more options available to me. I live in a more dynamic world because I have more personal dynamic ability, and I have grown. My world has grown. My aura has grown, one could say. Our being alongside entities within the world is concern. Okay, I'm sorry. I read all of that. I went off on this tangent and I didn't save a spot. I see annotation 3, annotation 1. Okay, I haven't even gotten to those annotations yet. Where was the last place I read? Being towards entities, being towards uncovers, and assertion expresses itself about entities which have been uncovered. Assertion communicates entities in the how of their uncoveredness. When Dasein is aware of the communication, it brings itself in its awareness into an uncovering being towards the entities discussed. The assertion which is expressed is about something, and in what it is about, in Hirem Woruber, it says Uber, so I'm just going to say Woruber. It contains the uncoveredness of these entities. This uncoveredness is preserved in what is expressed. What is expressed becomes, as it were, something ready to hand within the world which can be taken up and spoken again. Annotations. Let's see what we got. Das Ausgesprochen wird gleichsam zu einem Sinne weltlich so handeln, das aufgenommen und weitergesprochen werden kann. While we have followed our usual policy in translating das Ausgesprochen as what is expressed, it might perhaps be translated as that which is spoken out, the utterance, or even the pronouncement. Because the uncoveredness has been preserved, that which is expressed, which thus is ready to hand, has in itself a relation to any entities about which it is an assertion. Any uncoveredness is an uncoveredness of something, even when Dasein speaks over again what someone else had said. It comes into being towards the very entities which have been discussed. So it jumps to 3. Where was 2? There's 1. Where's annotation 2? Did they forget it? 3's probably down here. 3. Maybe that's a typo. Maybe that's supposed to be a 2 and it turned into a 3. That's got to be a typo because I don't see a third one on the second page. That's usually how they wrap it around. They put it on the bottom of the following page if it doesn't fit. Let's see. Also, don't dig rigidness of his frames. Perhaps lenses that overlap, tinted, scratched, layered, more permeable, like the influx boundaries permaculture celebrates Heidegger often too edgy. Okay. So reality edges more soft, hard, but the stuff... Yeah. Well, look, no doubt, Heidegger's definitely coming from a pessimistic place because of how he started this. Remember, he wrote this way back, like 70-something years ago or whatever, right? Like, he wrote this a long time ago. And mankind was kind of mostly living in, like, 2 worlds. Right? 2, maybe 3 worlds. You had the world of people that, didn't really matter what they believed, per se. It was all just kind of stuck out there. And then you've got the world of the monotheistic Abrahamics, and then the world of the material atheist. I suppose even the energetic atheist too, right? Because there's a material atheist, there's technically an energetic atheist, because even, like a quantum physicist type of person who's an atheist, even with all of that material reductionism going on, he's still, like, trying to wrap his freaking head around energy, right? And so, there's still some sort of energetic, almost like a mystery, right? It's almost like an atheist mystery school, the way quantum physics is pursued, right? Nowadays. But the stuff was sourced. Grown is all I'm saying. It was grown at you. Yeah. Anyway, excellent work. Thank you, Walk Outdoors. That was. I appreciate your contribution to the chat. Yeah, I totally get my beef, even in a work. Interruption being grown versus thrown, line up on ground. More accurately, it was grown versus thrown. Yep. I'm with you on what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I like it. Okay. Das, let's see, so I already read that, right? You might perhaps translate it as that which is spoken out, right? And then that's all in German. We don't even have to read it. Okay, so absorption in something that has been said belongs to the kind of being which the they possesses. That which has been expressed as such takes over being towards those entities which have been uncovered in the assertion. If, however, these entities are to be appropriated explicitly with regard to their uncoveredness, this amounts to saying that the assertion is to be demonstrated as one that uncovers. But the assertion expressed is something ready to hand, and indeed in such a way that as something by which uncoveredness is preserved, it has in itself a relation to the entities uncovered. Now, to demonstrate that it is something which uncovers, entdeckensseins means to demonstrate how the assertion by which the uncoveredness is preserved is related to these entities. The assertion is something ready to hand. The entities to which it is related as something that uncovers are either ready to hand or present at hand within the world. The relation itself presents itself thus as one that is present at hand, but this relation lies in the fact that the uncoveredness preserved in that the assertion is in each case an uncoveredness of something. The judgment contains something which holds for the objects, Kant. But the relation itself now acquires the character of presence at hand by getting switched over to a relationship between things which are present at hand. The uncoveredness of something becomes the present at hand conformity of one thing which is present at hand. The assertion expressed to something else which is present at hand. The entity under discussion, and if this conformity is seen only as a relationship between things which are present at hand, that is, if the kind of being which it belongs to, the terms of this relationship, has been discriminated and is now understood as something merely present at hand, then the relation shows itself as an agreement of two things which are present at hand, an agreement which is present at hand itself. When the assertion has been expressed, the uncoveredness of the entity moves into the kind of being of that which is ready to hand within the world. Don't have to read that one. But now to the extent that in this uncoveredness, as an uncoveredness of something, a relationship to something present at hand persists. The uncoveredness or truth becomes for its part a relationship between things which are present at hand, intellectus and res, a relationship that is present at hand itself. Though it is founded upon Dasein's disclosedness, the existential phenomenon of uncoveredness becomes a property which is present at hand, but in which there still lurks a relational character, and as such a property, it gets broken asunder into a relationship which is present at hand. The truth at disclosedness and as a being towards uncovered entities, a being which itself uncovers, has become truth as agreement between things which are present at hand within the world, and thus we have pointed out the ontologically derivative character of the traditional conception of truth. All right, let me double check on how far down we got to go here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. Okay. It's almost 5 o'clock. I still got time. Yeah, I still got time. So let's do this thing again, and I'm gonna play some more Muzak for you. Okay, there we go. Excellent, we're back. Okay, mic check. All right. 6 more pages, guys. We're going to try and do all 6 pages real fast, and then we're done with this division. Wow. Wow, that's like being done with like one whole book. You know, there's division. Wait, what did they say about that? Is it division 2 that wasn't released or division 3? Wasn't that the issue? Right, because the whole bit is that this is inherently incomplete in the English translation. And possibly lost in the German or something. But we still got a ways to go. I mean, like, you can see the scroll bar, like, right here. You should be able to see my mouse, right? I mean, like, that's, like, halfway down. Granted, we're not going to be reading all the stuff at the bottom of the book because of some of that stuff is just, like, glossaries type of stuff, right? So anyway, assertion and its structure. Hold on a second. No, wait, that... Truth understood, agree with kind of being which... Shoot. I feel like I just lost my page. And I think I lost the... Oh my god, why have I done this to myself? Hold on a second. Yeah, it should be this. Right? Am I crazy? Alright, hold on a second. We're going to go with assertion. And then... 266, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No. Okay, I'm too far back. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ah, here we are. Yeah, that's it. My bad. I would have made us go over 2 pages that I had already read. That would have been terrible. Yet that which is last in the order of the way things are connected in their foundations, existentially and ontologically, is regarded ontically and factically as that which is first and closest to us. The necessity of this fact, however, is based in turn upon the kind of being which Dasein itself possesses. Dasein in its concernful absorption and understanding itself in terms of what it encounters within the world. The uncoveredness which belongs to uncovering is something that we come across proximally within the world, in that which has been expressed im Ausgesprochenen. Not only truth, however, is encountered as present at hand. In general, our understanding of being is such that every entity is understood in the first instance as present at hand. If the truth which we encounter proximally in an ontical manner is considered ontologically in the way that is closest to us, then the logos, the assertion, gets understood as logos something or another, as an assertion about something and uncoveredness of something, but the phenomenon gets interpreted as something present at hand with regard to its possible presence at hand. Okay. Yet because presence at hand has been equated with the meaning of being in general, the question of whether this kind of being of truth is a primordial one, and whether there is anything primordial in the structure of it which we encounter as closest to us cannot come alive at all. The primordial phenomenon of truth has been covered up by Dasein's very understanding of being, that understanding which is proximally the one that prevails, which even today has not been surmounted explicitly and in principle. At the same time, however, we must not overlook the fact that while this way of understanding being, the way which is closest to us, is one which the Greeks were the first to develop as a branch of knowledge and to master, the primordial understanding of truth was simultaneously alive among them, even if pre-ontologically, and it even held its own against the concealment implicit in their ontology, at least in Aristotle. Aristotle never defends the thesis that the primordial locus of truth is in the judgment. He says rather that the logos is that way of being in which Dasein can either uncover or cover up. This double possibility is what is distinctive in the being true of the logos. Right, because the logos is wisdom, right? And wisdom It's just like two people can know the same shit about stuff and have a completely different relationship with it. The logos is that way of comporting oneself, which can also cover things up. And because Aristotle never upheld the thesis we have mentioned, he was also never in a situation to broaden the conception of truth in the logos to include pure this word. The truth of it, of this term, and of the seeing of ideas is the primordial kind of uncovering, and only because that term primarily uncovers can the logos, as this term, also have uncovering as its function. Not only is it wrong to invoke Aristotle for the thesis that the genuine locus of truth lies in the judgment, even in its content, this thesis fails to recognize the structure of truth. Assertion is not the primary locus of truth. On the contrary, whether as a mode in which uncoveredness is appropriated or as a way of being in the world, assertion is grounded in Dasein's uncovering, or rather in its disclosedness. The most primordial truth is the locus of assertion. It is the ontological condition for the possibility that assertion can be either true or false, that they may uncover or cover things up. Truth, understood in the most primordial sense, belongs to the basic constitution of Dasein. The term signifies an existential, but herewith we have already stretched out our answer to the question of what kind of being truth possesses, and the question of in what sense it is necessary to presuppose that there is truth. C. The kind of being which truth possesses and the presupposition of truth. Let's see how we're doing here. Dasein, as constituted by disclosedness, is essentially in the truth. Disclosedness is a kind of being which is essential to Dasein. There is truth only insofar as Dasein is, and so long as Dasein is. Entities are uncovered only when Dasein is, and only as long as Dasein is are they disclosed. Newton's laws, the principle of contradiction, any truth whatever, these are true only as long as Dasein is. See, there's an implication that there is a way that Dasein cannot be. So, does that work if you are alive? What is it when Dasein is not? Because Dasein always seems to be is, except under the circumstance of whether Dasein is, and then ... a certain situation that we understand as a world. Because I don't know how your Dasein, because I'm just saying it implies there's a way that Dasein is not, if there is a way that Dasein is. Sorry, these crackers are delicious. Newton's laws, the principle of contradiction, any truth whatever, these are true only as long as Dasein is. Before there was any Dasein, there was no truth, nor will there be any after Dasein is no more. Right, because we're talking about existence, right? Which gets into the condition in which that is, right? Because what's the biggest thing about death? Death is the question of, when I die, what about Dasein? What is my Dasein when I die? And that question is the question that builds religions. But it can also break them. For in such a case, truth as disclosedness, uncovering, and uncoveredness cannot be. Before Newton's laws were discovered, they were not true. It does not follow that they were false, or even that they would become false if ontically no discoveredness were any longer possible. Just as little does this restriction imply that the being true of truths has in any way been diminished. To say that before Newton his laws were neither true nor false cannot signify that before him there were no such entities as have been uncovered and pointed out by those laws. Through Newton, the laws became true, and with them entities became accessible in themselves to Dasein. Once entities have been uncovered, they show themselves precisely as entities which beforehand already were. Such uncovering is the kind of being which belongs to truth. So that's truth and its quality with Dasein, and how all of that is part of the force of uncoveredness, right? And so, this is kind of akin to the way our world changed when we discovered radio waves. The discovery of radio waves was also baked in the cake of the utility of radio waves, because we had to have something to interact with the medium, and we had to know that there was a medium. And then we had to start, and then once you discover that medium, you start being able to apply it, to apply the use of this medium that you've never used before into how your life works, and that's thus changing your existence. And thus, here you are, you've now grown into a new Dasein because you discovered radio waves. And then we live in the world of broadcasting. And that was how communication was defined in the 20th century. All right. To say that before Newton his laws were neither true nor false cannot signify that before him there were no such entities as have been uncovered and pointed out by those laws. See, that's an interesting question, right? Because they say that one of the funky things was, I forget which civilization it was, but there was a civilization that described the ocean by the same word they used to describe, like, grass. So, effectively, they were saying the ocean is green, right? And so, in their Dasein, they didn't have a word for blue because they didn't have a distinction between the color shade of the grass and the color shade of the ocean. This was because their world wasn't paying attention to the details on the material level. And thus, a colorful world, or that had more kinds of colors as such, well, it didn't matter much to them. So they didn't notice the color of the sky. They didn't notice the color of the ocean like that. They were in the ocean. They saw the ocean all the time. In this example, right? So much so that they had a name for the color of the ocean. So through Newton, the laws became true, and with them, entities became accessible in themselves to Dasein. I'm sorry, I'm reading this whole passage again, but what I had to repeat there was really good. So, that there are eternal truths will not be adequately proved until someone has succeeded in demonstrating that Dasein has been and will be for all eternity. As long as such a proof is still outstanding, this principle remains a fanciful contention which does not gain in legitimacy from having philosophers commonly believe it. That gets into all sorts of things, the questions of like why we used to say the world was flat. We used to say the world was, we say the world is round, but people now there's many people that seriously want to say it's flat again. I cop out with the realm theory, screw me. And either way you look at it, it's because you're working out the discrepancies, because you don't want to be gaslit. You're trying to work out the discrepancies of everything, right? And you're trying to leave yourself available to flexibility because you understand that something doesn't make sense with the continuity of either of these guys, and the story's all convoluted, and and I'm being left with no choice but to believe in absurdities, and thus I have to challenge my own discretion, because you're leaving me no choice but to go to the absurd answers of things like Earth flat, right? Because this is how because the way you have undisclosed the science of the matter of what goes on with international travel, with nautical travel, with aeronautic travel. We've lost touch with the sense of when we normally know and see and understand the world. Right, right. I see Earth pass in front of the sun on a telescope that's out in space. Well, I've never been out in space to look at a telescope looking back at the Earth. And neither have you. And neither has anybody else. And then you've got Freemasons that are saying that they have, because they're the ones that get to go to space. So it's trust the Freemasons that were selected by the Nazis in the 1960s to tell us what happened when the Nazis put them in a rocket, allegedly, and put them outside of this orbit, allegedly. You can trust all that. You can trust all of that and whatever you think of those people and the lodges that they came from. So, through Newton, the laws became true. And with them, entities became accessible. Why am I reading that again? Commonly believe it. I'm down here. Ha 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 ha. Because the kind of being that is essential to truth is of the character of Dasein, all truth is relative to Dasein's being. Does this relativity signify that all truth is subjective? If one interprets subjective as left to the subject's discretion, then it certainly does not. For uncovering in the sense which is most its own takes asserting out of the province of subjective discretion and brings the uncovering Dasein face to face with the entities themselves. And only because truth as uncovering is a kind of being which belongs to Dasein can it be taken out of the province of Dasein's discretion. Even the universal validity of truth is rooted solely in the fact that Dasein can uncover entities in themselves and free them. Only so can these entities in themselves be binding for every possible assertion, that is, for every way of pointing them out. Okay, we got an annotation here. That's all just German, so we're going to skip it. If truth has been correctly understood, is it in the least impaired by the fact that it is ontically possible only in the subject, and that it stands and falls with the being of that subject? Now that we have an existential conception of the kind of being that belongs to truth and truth, the meaning of presupposing the truth also becomes intelligible. Why must we presuppose that there is truth? What is presupposing? What do we have in mind with the must and the we? These are very important questions. This gets right into the challenges of knowing so much, experiencing so much, and attitudes of nihilism that will arise. What does it mean to say that there is truth? Not just nihilism, but solipsism, right? Like this gets right into like half the conversations you hear with Mark Passio and everybody else under the One Great Work Network. Shout out to Will Keller, Logan Hart, and all the other Mark Passiites. Can we call them Mark Passiites? Does that work? Or the pacifiers. How my pacifiers doing it? Okay, anyway, enough of the funny. What does it mean to say there is truth? We presuppose truth because we, being in the kind of being which Dasein possesses, are in the truth. We do not presuppose it as something outside us and above us, towards which along with other values, we comport ourselves. It is not we who presuppose truth, but it is truth that makes it all possible ontologically for us to be able to be such that we presuppose anything at all. Truth is what first makes possible anything like presupposing. Let's see. When our satellites are round, our sun is round. All the planets are the moon. It pretty much settles it. Also, logic says that when the Earth passes between the moon and the sun, and it blocks out the moon, making the new moon. Right. Yeah. That's all based on certain assumptions of where everything is placed, and how light works, how our atmosphere works, how the laws of space operate outside of our local gravitational pull, which then gets into the subject of time. We are talking about time as well as being. So yeah. That's one of the funky little things, right? Because at the end of the day, I can also show you pictures people have taken where they have taken a picture from an airplane of allegedly a complete solar eclipse, and I'm looking at it and I'm said, like, hold on a second, why is that? Why this picture was taken at a very, very high altitude? Why at this altitude, where you are not directly below the sun and moon, are we seeing a perfect eclipse? You can't see a perfect eclipse like that unless the moon and the sun are lower in the sky, because you have to be parallel. Your camera has to be parallel to the sun and the moon. So that shot is either a fraud, or it's possible that the sun and the moon are smaller and local. And this person tried to use that picture to say that the Earth can't be flat, and that picture actually lends to the argument because the angles don't work. You can't get a proper full solar eclipse when you're all the way up there like that, because you're closer to the moon now. The alignment is off. You have to remember, it's an optical illusion. If you're that many thousands of feet closer to the moon, while you're wrapping around, on the curve, the alleged curvature of the Earth as such, you're not going to see. You're going to see the sun at an angle. It's going to cut it a little bit, because that's just not the way the sun and the moon pass each other. It just doesn't work that way, period. But anyway, yeah. Models are models. You can check out all sorts of models for the flat Earth. You can check out all sorts of models for the round Earth. Both of them work. They have models that talk about shadows, how the eclipses work, how sunlight goes away when we call something a setting of that sun. Yeah, there's plenty of fucking models. If all you need to believe in something is a functional model and not the thing itself, go get in your fucking airship. You go out and you go fucking as high up as the moon. When you get up as high up as the moon, you can tell me what you think the planet is. Until then, we have to work with, where is it? Let me show you where the fuck we have to work with. You know what I gotta work with? I gotta work with this. You see this piece of shit that I got at the dump? That's what I'm fucking working with. I don't even fucking use this thing yet. Right? I gotta fucking trust people who got an agenda for money, involving globalist bullshit, involving Nazi Operation Paperclip. What world are you fucking living in? I don't want to live in NASA's Nazi world. Because right now, they're the affirmers. You look at the language in the 1950s and the 1960s of the space program. What was more important than showing you how they fucking, got to space was showing you around Earth from space. Oh, look at the curve of that Earth. Oh, look, round, just like we told you it was. People believed the Earth was flat back then. A lot of people. It was necessary to fucking do that. To mind control you. Maybe the Earth is round. Congratulations. You let a Nazi military organization and science department that was co-opted by the United States and shared a lie with the mainstream media tell you what the world is. And you've never fucking evaluated it because you think that those Nazis used the same kind of science that a good person would use to tell you the truth. So it's the truth whether it came from a Nazi or not. These are the fucking lies that we live. These are the lies that we live. The quality of the person matters when you take a look at the process. And a lot of people have been saying that it's not the method, it's the man. Interested to learn the 8 and the 9 zodiac versus the 12. That's a good question. I'm not going to talk about that tonight because I want to be done soon. And this is not an astrological, numerological live stream. This is a depths of the madness of your world live stream. What does it mean to say there is truth? We presuppose truth because we, being in the kind of being which Dasein possesses, are in the truth. We do not presuppose it as something outside us and above us, towards which, along with other values, we comport values, or we comport ourselves, rather. It is not we who presuppose truth, but it is truth that makes it all possible ontologically for us to be able to be such that we presuppose anything at all. I'm sorry, I read that already. See what you've done to me? You got me on these tangents. What does it mean to presuppose? It is to understand something as the ground for the being of some other entity. Such understanding of an entity in its interconnections of being is possibly only on the ground of disclosedness. That is, on the ground of Dasein's being something which uncovers. Thus, to presuppose truth means to understand it as something for the sake of which Dasein is. But Dasein is already ahead of itself in each case. This is implied in its state of being as care. It is an entity for which in its being, its own most potentiality for being is an issue. To Dasein's being and its potentiality for being as being in the world. Disclosedness and uncovering belonging essentially. Oh, don't apologize, Susie. Don't be silly. To Dasein, its potentially for being in the world is an issue, and this includes concerning itself with entities within the world and uncovering them circumspectively. Let's find out this annotation. Reading und deren with the newer editions, the older editions have DHUA. Weird and interesting. Okay. In Dasein's state of being as care, in being ahead of itself, lies the most primordial presupposing, because this presupposing of itself belongs to Dasein's being. We must also presuppose ourselves as having the attributes of disclosedness. There are also entities with a character other than that of Dasein, but the presupposing which lies in Dasein's being does not relate itself to these. It relates itself solely to Dasein itself, the truth which has been presupposed, or the there is by which its being is to be defined, has that kind of being, or meaning of being, which belongs to Dasein itself. We must make the presupposition of truth because it is one that has been made already with the being of the we. We must presuppose truth, Dasein itself, as in each case, my Dasein and this Dasein must be, and in the same way the truth, as Dasein's disclosedness must be, this belongs to Dasein's essential thrownness into the world. Has Dasein as itself ever decided freely whether it wants to come into Dasein or not, and will it ever be able to make such a decision? In itself, it is quite incomprehensible why entities are to be uncovered, why truth and Dasein must be. The usual refutation of that skepticism, which denies either the being of truth or its cognizability, stops halfway. What it shows as a formal argument is simply that if anything gets judged, truth has been presupposed. This suggests that truth belongs to assertion, that pointing something out is, by its very meaning, an uncovering. But when one says this, one has to clarify why that in which there lies the ontological ground for this necessary connection between the assertion and truth as regards their being must be as it is. The kind of being which belongs to truth is likewise left completely obscure, and so is the meaning of presupposing, and that of its ontological foundation in Dasein itself. Moreover, one here fails to recognize that even when nobody judges, truth already gets presupposed insofar as Dasein is at all. A skeptic can no more be refuted than the being of truth can be proved. And if any specific or if any skeptic of the kind who denies the truth factically is, he does not even need to be refuted insofar as he is, and has understood himself in the being. He has obliterated Dasein in the desperation of suicide. Ooh, wow. See, we're getting a little dark. See, Walk? Look at this. Heidegger's invoking suicide. That's a nice and lighthearted subject, ain't it? And in doing so, he has also obliterated truth. Because Dasein, for its own part, cannot first be subjected to proof. The necessity of truth cannot be proved either. It has no more been demonstrated that there ever has been an actual skeptic, though this is what has... I'm sorry, hold on. 2. Das es je einem welchen Skeptiker gegeben hat. The older editions have nie or never instead of je or ever. Never, ever, ever. Though this is what has at bottom been believed in the refutations of skepticism in spite of what these undertake to do, then it has been demonstrated that there are any eternal truths. But perhaps such skeptics have been more frequent than one would innocently like to have true when one tries to bowl over skepticism by formal dialectics. Let me just take a quick look here. Is this the last page? Nope. We got 2 pages left. Almost done. How exciting. Let's see. Shoot for 5:45, shall we? Thus, with the question of being of truth and necessity of presupposing, it just as with the question of the essence of knowledge, an ideal subject has generally been posited. The motive for this, whether explicit or tacit, lies in the requirement that the philosophy should have the a priori as its theme, rather than empirical facts as such. There is some justification for this requirement, though it still needs to be grounded ontologically. Yet, is this requirement satisfied by positing an ideal subject? Is not such a subject a fanciful idealization? With such a conception, have we not missed precisely the a priori character of that merely factual subject, Dasein? Is it not an attribute of the a priori character of the factical subject that is an attribute of Dasein's facticity, that it is in the truth and in untruth equiprimordially? The ideas of a pure I and of a consciousness in general are so far from including the a priori character of actual subjectivity that the ontological characters of Dasein, facticity, and its state of being are either passed over or not seen at all. Rejection of a consciousness in general does not signify that the a priori is negated any more than the positing of an idealized subject guarantees that Dasein has an a priori character grounded upon fact. Both the contention that there are eternal truths and the jumbling together of Dasein's phenomenally grounded ideality with an idealized absolute subject belong to those residues of Christian theology within philosophical problematics which have not as yet been radically extruded. The being of truth is connected primordially with Dasein, and only because Dasein is as constituted by disclosedness, that is, by understanding, can anything like being be understood. Only so is it possible to understand being. Being, not entities, is something which there is only insofar as truth is, and truth is only insofar as, and as long as, Dasein is. Being and truth are equiprimordially, It's an odd place for a period, so it kind of feels like it's a typo. What does it signify that being is, where being is to be distinguished from every entity? One can ask this concretely only if the meaning of being and the full scope of the understanding of being have in general been clarified. Only then can one also analyze primordially what belongs to the concept of a science of being as such, and to its possibilities and its variations, and in demarcating this research and its truth, the kind of research in which entities are uncovered and its accompanying truths must be defined ontologically. Woo! 2 more passages to go, guys. Exciting. Marlene Prosdosimo. Hey, how are you? Why a typo? I don't know, I'm guessing. I'm just saying that, like, I ran over that sentence like 3 times and it sounded odd to my ear. And that can happen if my cadence is off, but my cadence is usually pretty good. So it feels like a typo. That's all I'm saying. If you think that flows perfectly fine, then it's my bad. It's on me. So anyway, that's why I have it here for you to see it, to read along with me, to double check what I say. If you know Greek, you got the Greek words there to look up the deeper meaning that unfortunately is going to go over my head in the limits of my academic discipline. So, the answer to the question of the meaning of being has yet to be given stehet aus. What has our fundamental analysis of Dasein, as we have carried it out so far, contributed to working out this question? By laying bare the phenomenon of care, we have clarified the state of being of that entity to which being something like an understanding of being belongs. At the same time, the being of Dasein has thus been distinguished from modes of being, readiness to hand, presence at hand, reality, which characterizes entities with a character other than that of Dasein. Understanding has itself been elucidated, and at the same time, the methodological transparency of the procedure of interpreting being by understanding it and interpreting it has thus been guaranteed. Hi, I guess it's an adverb relating to are, so they are at the same original time. Aha, could it be? Okay, sounds good. If in care we have arrived at Dasein's primordial state of being, then this must also be the basis for the conceptualizing that understanding of being which lies in care. That is to say, it must be possible to define the meaning of being, but is the phenomenon of care one in which the most primordial, existential, ontological state of Dasein is disclosed? And has the structural manifoldness which lies in this phenomenon presented us with the most primordial totality of factical Dasein's being? Has our investigation up to this point ever brought Dasein into view as a whole? Yeah, interesting. I wonder, so is that what he's going to answer? So let me take a quick look here what Division 2 looks like. There's 45, because I know that this book goes into like the 60s. So this is like 45 and then it's like 60 something, right? If I go over here, there's the, okay, so you can see the tab. So here we are, Division 2, 45, and then it's going to go on till, oh, I'm sorry, it goes on till 83, actually. So actually, yeah, this is like literally like halfway. Congratulations, we're finally halfway through this fucking monster. So strap yourself in, boys and girls. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me this afternoon into evening. It is now 5:40. I am wiped. This has been cool. I appreciate Walk Outdoors and Marlene for popping in. You guys are new names in the chat room. Great to see the veterans, Susie and Violence here. I love you guys. I will get on and start Division 2 soon. Have a killer weekend as such.